For 2,000 years, the Christian church has taught the most damaging lie in religious history from one verse, Galatians 3:16. They say God replaced Israel with the church. But what if I told you Paul wasn't announcing replacement? He was announcing restoration. But here's what your pastor never told you. The Pharisees weren't just arguing theology with Paul. They were protecting real estate. That's right, land inheritance rights. When scattered Israelites from the northern kingdom tried to return and claim, Abraham is our father, the Pharisees went ballistic. Why? Because if these so-called Gentiles could prove they were Abraham's seed through Isaac, they had legal claim to the land promises, the inheritance, the covenant territory. The tribe of Judah had exclusively monopolized the title Seed of Abraham for 700 years. They alone claimed the land rights. They alone could say, Abraham is our father. And they intended to keep it that way. Here's what the church teaches from Galatians chapter 3:14. That the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ. Their interpretation. God made promises to Israel through Abraham. Israel rejected Jesus. God rejected Israel. God created a new thing called the church. This church is made of Gentiles, non-Jews. These Gentiles now get Abraham's blessings instead of Israel. All those land promises? Spiritual now. Forget the physical land. The Jews are just unsaved people, no special status. From this one verse, they justified the Crusades, the Inquisition, and even the Holocaust. But Paul destroys their argument in verse 16-17. Watch this. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He saith not seeds, plural, but seed, singular, which is Christ. The church says, see, it's all about Jesus and the church now. But then Paul drops the hammer in verse 17. And this I say, that the covenant confirmed before of God in Christ, the law which was 430 years after cannot disannul. Wait, stop. Think about what Paul just said. Paul is arguing that the Mosaic law, which came 430 years after the Abrahamic covenant, cannot overfeit the unconditional promise God made to Abraham and his physical seed through Isaac. The Pharisees were using the Mosaic law to block the returning northern tribes. They said, you were divorced from the covenant. You intermarried with pagans. You have no proof of tribal lineage. The law disqualifies you. You cannot claim Abraham as your father. You have no rights to the land inheritance. But Paul says, hold on. The promise was made to the seed, the collective seed of Isaac. That seed line is one. You cannot separate it. The Abrahamic covenant included all 12 tribes, not just Judah. The Gentiles in Galatians 3:14 are not random pagan nations. They are the scattered sheep of Israel, the divorced northern kingdom living among the nations who thought they were Gentiles. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 15:24, I was not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's why Paul said in Galatians 3:13, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. Us means Judah and the lost tribes. The curse of divorce, the curse that scattered Israel, the curse that said, you are not my people. Christ took that curse so the scattered seed could come home and say, Abraham is our father too, and we have inheritance rights in the land. This isn't replacement theology. This is restoration theology. Paul wasn't saying God abandoned Israel for Gentile Christians. He was saying God is restoring the divorced house of Israel. The scattered seed is coming home. Both houses, Judah and Ephraim, are returning to the covenant. Romans 11:25-26. Blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. And so all Israel shall be saved. All Israel. Both houses. The full seed of Abraham through Isaac. The Pharisees wanted to keep the land for themselves. But God's unconditional promise cannot be broken by any law that came 430 years later. The blessing of Abraham is coming upon the scattered seed of Israel, those who have been living among the nations. And nothing, not replacement theology, not anti-Semitism, not denial of land rights, can stop what God promised Abraham. Stop teaching the lie. Start teaching restoration. If this revelation shook you, share it. The time for truth is now.